Hello, I'm Professor Lieu. Welcome to our live stream. I'm here today with art prof teaching artist Lauryn Welch, and we have a special guest today, Neil Espinosa, who is a high school student in the Philippines. And what we're going to be doing today is an art school portfolio critique on Neil's portfolio. If you would like to grow as an artist and you can't afford an art class, we've got everything you need here at Art Prof, critiques and tutorials. So here we have a spread of Neil's entire portfolio. We're going to start by talking about his portfolio in general, and then we'll talk about each piece individually. So Neil, talk to us about your portfolio. Are you applying to art schools this year?
Oh, yes. I am applying at art schools here in the Philippines, but currently I don't know how that will go because of the virus, but I like to have my portfolio ready in case.
Right. And I would say, looking at your portfolio right now, do you have any immediate concerns about it or specific things you're struggling with? Like, how do you feel about where the portfolio is right now? Because it's pretty early in terms of applying right now. You've got time to work on it. So how do you feel about your portfolio?
I would say that it's finished, but not perfect, just like what you said. And yeah, that's all, I guess. There's a lot of things to improve, but currently I don't know what those things are. That's why this stream would be very helpful to me.
Lauryn, let's get your first take on Neil's portfolio overall.
Yeah, well, I'm going to agree with Tom G here. Looking good, Neil. So I think you have a lot of really strong, varied work in this. Of course, there are always things to improve on. I'm particularly interested in the way that you create hierarchy in your images, both through color and brush strokes. So I'll probably be talking a lot about that, about how you clarify things and bring things into focus in your work. But I am very excited to see that you have both sketches and finished pieces. You have 3D and 2D. You have a range of subjects. That is all stuff we like to see in a high school portfolio.
My first impression, Neil, is that your work is intense, and not just in terms of your handling of the art media, but also in terms of the subject matter. I mean, you have a couple pieces that are, and this is a compliment, a little bit terrifying. But what I see in all the pieces is that even though there are things we're going to tell you to work on, there's a real passion here in these pieces that I can see the effort really visibly, and that counts for a lot. Because you know something? You'll learn that technique. You'll practice, you'll get better at it. But that passion and that intensity, that's not always a given for every single artist. So I'm really, really excited about that. Okay, let's start with this first piece. Neil, is this in charcoal?
It's in graphite.
It's in graphite? Whoa, yes. What kind of tools did you use for it?
Pencil.
You didn't use anything else?
Yeah, I didn't have woodless pencils at the time I did this, so yeah.
Did you do it in a range of pencils, of hardnesses and softnesses, or just one type?
No, a range of pencils.
Okay.
And like I shoot with a long tip, so it would be a bit easier.
Did you use an eraser to lift things from it, or is this mostly layering chalk or graphite on top of itself?
A little bit of both, some erasing, some layering.
Well, Clara, what are your thoughts on this now that you know all the technique secrets?
I mean, it doesn't feel like a pencil drawing to me, and I say that as a positive thing, because oftentimes when I see pencil drawings by people in high school, they generally tend to be these photorealistic copies of a photo that they found on the internet. They're usually really, really tight and detail oriented. And what I like about this piece, it's really painterly. I mean, to me, it feels more like a painting than it does like a pencil drawing. What do you think, Lauryn?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was immediately drawn to the light in this piece, the light and the shadows. It has a mood to it, feels very cinematic. That bottle in the middle has a persona to it. I am totally drawn in and going over all of the lights and the creases and the glares in this Coca-Cola bottle.
I mean, I guess what I would consider is the composition, because I feel like that one bottle in the middle, I'm definitely going to look at it because it's the highest contrast area. It has the most detail in the piece. I actually really like the crumpled bottle on the right-hand side because that one's a little bit more subtle. But the thing is, it's like you're putting me right into the middle of the page. And actually, I think you could do more with on the left-hand side because that area has a beautiful darkness to it. But it does feel like an area that I'm not as interested in. So I think what's great about this piece is you have really good articulation and use of the material, but you have to work out the composition a little bit better. Okay, so let's take a look at this piece. Neil, is this a self-portrait?
Yes.
And what material did you use?
Oil pastel on paper.
Lauryn, what do you think?
I think I know what tutorial this was from, possibly. So I think this is a really good following in terms of the color that you have going on here. Your structure is the area that I would want to work on, especially in that cheekbone area. Like, I can tell that you want it to look really strong, but I feel like maybe watching some more of those anatomy, facial anatomy videos would be very helpful in the part 2 of this piece.
We have a bunch of comments from people in the chat. Blue Wolf Spirit is saying, this is so amazing. Seven Angelic is saying it's got a lot of mood to it. Tom G says, I love the colors in the portrait. Cerulean says, intense, and the color is awesome. And this is a really cool comment from Charisma, who's saying, I feel like I'm in a black and white film. Yeah, I mean, that goes with what you said earlier, Lauryn, about Neil's work really having a cinematic feel to them. And I do think that actually a lot of it does have to do with your lighting, Neil, because oftentimes with portraits, people don't even think about lighting. And then you end up with a very flat portrait. I think, Neil, I love the facial features. The eye's a little bit small for me. I think you might want that to be a bit more dramatic. It's not like a problem, but I definitely notice it just because everything else is so bold that the eye sort of feels like it's disappearing a little bit. I think the part that confuses me is actually if I put my cursor over here. Do you guys see this like little slice of blue? Like, I'm not sure if that's supposed to be the side of your neck or if that's more flesh on the side of your face. Is that supposed to be the neck, Neil?
Yeah, it's supposed to be the neck.
I read those.
Yeah, like that area to me, it just looks really pudgy. And I don't know that I believe it as a neck. Lauryn, what do you think?
I want to disagree with you there, Clara, like we always do. I think that the color differentiation is the thing that really divides that into the neck area for me versus the cheek area. You have this blue color, that recedes back a little bit, that divides that area from the warmer cheek up above. It makes me feel like it's a different plane.
I will say, Neil, one of my favorite parts of the portrait is the bluish reflected light on the left-hand side of the face. Like, oftentimes people are so afraid to put more brilliant colors in shadow. And a lot of people just say, oh, well, if it's shadow, it's got to be gray. And what ends up happening is you get these shadows that are really, really dull and not very interesting.
Kaylin really likes the experimentation that you have going on in these pieces so far.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the next piece. And what media is this, Neil?
Acrylic paint. Yes.
And what are the objects? Because they seem really specific.
These are like random objects in the house that we don't really use. So like chess pieces, I don't play chess. And I don't like wearing hats. And I don't play Rubik's Cube. That Rubik's actually, I broke it and then I assembled it so that the colors would be like that because I don't actually know how to be. So yeah, this is like objects I don't use but are just for the still life.
Okay, I've got a comment on the content just because we're there. Okay, why did you choose objects that you do not use or you have no relationship with? I'm just curious.
Because my process with the still life is I just walk around the house and we have a lot of, my mom calls it junk because we don't have for it, but it's in there, it's in our house. So it's like I guess I want to make some use with those objects, otherwise they're just collecting dust. So I guess that's my reasoning behind that. And also the color, I guess I have a color scheme in mind when I started to hunt for objects.
Yeah, the color scheme does seem specific. Clara, what are your thoughts about this piece?
Well, I think it's a much more dynamic composition than the other two that we saw. Like, I really feel like I'm moving across the page and I'm going behind objects and around them. So the composition is very good. I think, though, that the articulation, it's a little bit too similar. I wish that maybe there are a couple objects that had a lot of detail and then maybe some areas that were really blurry, because it does feel a little bit too much the same. I don't know, Lauryn, what do you think about the piece?
Yeah, I agree. My thing about, I think the objects were painted in a way that is true to the shape of them, I'm going to say. But this is where I'm getting into this whole hierarchy thing. It looks like you use the same size brush and the same amount of white within the whole piece. There's a certain overallness both in the brush stroke and the neutral quality or the grayness of the piece that I think you could vary.
Okay, is this a pencil drawing, Neil?
Yes, pencil drawing again.
And what was the inspiration for this piece?
It's actually an assignment. It's about freedom, what freedom means to you. And my idea is that we aren't really free because our choices are affected by other people's choices and our choice affect others. So it's like, you can't just do what you want because there's consequences. That's why it's done, like that. Yeah.
Lauryn, what is your first impression?
This feels like a hedge maze. This really feels like I can get the sense of the scale of this by the way that you've repeated everything from these big dominoes in the front all the way to the back. So I do really get that sense of powerlessness. I think that comes across really well. Clara, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's really moody and a little bit scary in a good way, though. I think that it's a place I don't really want to hang out. And it does feel very suffocating. Like there's no air in this space. And I feel very trapped in the image.
Simple Triskel says, ooh, I love that. So thought-provoking, which I agree. I think that is a good interpretation of that idea.
So, Neil, are they supposed to be dominoes? Because a couple people are asking, Seven Angelic says, are those people in the dominoes?
Yeah, those are supposed to be dominoes. The idea is that no matter in which direction the people would walk, they're gonna topple some dominoes. And it's like the consequences of their action. No matter what they do, there's always a consequence.
Moises agrees. I agree with this comment here. I love this one. My only take is I feel it could be pushed a bit more. Neil already did the line work, just needs to sharpen the line work here. And yeah, everything is treated with the same line quality more or less. So you just need to push that contrast either in literal black and white contrast or in mark making contrast for us to really get that sense of depth.
The other thing I'm wondering, Neil, is if we even need the people, because the thing is the people that you have in the composition, number one, they're tiny and they're not that recognizable. I feel like the person in the lower right-hand corner, they get a little bit muddled. And so I sort of feel like just the dominoes by themselves already conveys the atmosphere. So it could be a situation of less is more, or maybe you have to do a better job of drawing the people so that they're a little bit more delicate. They look a little bit primitive to me right now, and they're sort of getting lost, I think, in your composition. Lauryn, what about this piece?
Oh, this piece is the stuff of my nightmares. I mean, the technique on it is really fantastic, but I am terrified by things like large rats, and I think you did a great job in getting the creaturely hairy grossness of this monster. I think what I'm looking at for, again, you've got a thing with color here where you're using a lot of different colors, but they're meshing together in a really similar way, where you need to draw out some contrasts, either hue-wise or what's the word? Tonally wise, tonal quality. Clara, what about you?
Well, I'm curious, Neil, what was your reference for this? Did you have a photo of a rat, or what did you do?
I used Google Images because there's a rat in our kitchen, but I can't take a photo of it because I don't like it. So yeah. The rats are from different Google image pictures collaged together.
That's a challenge. If you've got a real rat in your house, your challenge is to get a photo of that rat.
Oh, I can't.
This is a cool comment from Charisma, who's saying, I love this. It scares me and I like that. And David Pena is saying, this rat looks so possessive. Well, when you're grabbing somebody by their hair, maybe you want to possess somebody. So I think, Neil, the rat is phenomenal. It's super striking. It's really bold. It leaps out. That's great. But I'm losing the person a little bit. And I'll tell you, when I first looked at the painting, I didn't even see the person. It really took me a while. And so I almost wonder if, from a composition point of view, you need to give us more room on the left-hand side and less room on the right. Because on the right, there's not a huge amount going on, and I'm not getting a lot of new information. But on the left, where the little person, their hands are cropped, the rat's left side of their arm is cropped, I feel that that's a little bit smushed, and I just want a little bit more room there.
He was asking, what media is this?
This is digital painting. Digital.
Is this using Procreate or
Photoshop?
Oh, Photoshop. Cool, cool.
That's crazy. I thought it was an acrylic painting. What did you think, Lauryn?
I looking at this beforehand, I suspected it might be digital, but I really wasn't sure. So that's some special brush stroking in there, choice of brushes.
Okay, so let's take a look at this piece. Neil, what is the media?
Digital again. Photoshop.
Okay. So, Lauryn, what do you think about this piece?
Wow, this piece, the last piece was my nightmares. This is really my nightmares. This feels like it's out of a video game. I think the video game's called like Amnesia or something, and it's all dark, and you get attacked by these creepy creatures. And so my favorite areas of this piece are the ones where it goes all the way into blackness, but it fades really well in this way that there is depth in that blackness. It's not just totally flat.
I mean, I think, Neil, you did an amazing job of really activating that background, because I think a lot of people, oftentimes they say, oh, it's all in shadow, I need to add anything at all. And I just love that there's this like little glimmer of the faucet, a little bit of the tiles. I mean, there's an incredible amount of depth in that area.
This is Simple Triskel saying it reminds me of the Goya Saturn piece. Awesome. And I don't know if you know which piece this is, Neil, where Saturn's eating his children. It's great. I wish we could have it up here. That's a really good reference.
Well, one thing I would think about, though, Neil, is working on the linear perspective. I'm sorry, it's the linear perspective police. I'm here to fix your linear perspective issues. So the linear perspective in this piece, it's not that clear. So you're sort of getting away with it a little bit. It's not like you're doing a pen drawing that has very clear-cut lines. I mean, this is a very painterly piece, but if you really got the linear perspective to be consistent and to work for you, it would look amazing. So you might want to go back and watch some of our linear perspective tutorials because it's such a small thing, but I think it makes a really big difference.
I don't know if I agree with that, Clara. I think if
tell me why.
Okay. So sometimes when you have linear perspective in a piece or you make it really exact looking, it gives a sense of logic to the piece that feels very grounded and rational. And I don't think that's necessarily what you're going for in this piece. I think you are going for a sense of disorientation or creepiness and scariness. And sometimes not using linear perspective and tilting it makes it feel more disorienting.
Our Reach is saying, I love this creepiness. And Cerulean is saying, wow, I really wish I knew how you did this in Photoshop. And Rainbow is saying it adds to the nightmarish vibe. Very cool. We're getting a lot of great reactions. Okay, Lauryn, how about this series of sketches?
These are really a nice thing to include. It's a break from your more finished work, but there is a sense of finishedness to this work. It's almost the equivalent of your gesture type drawings, except they're a little bit more detailed and completed. So I think it's nice that we have three different mediums, right? You got charcoal marker and crayon.
It's graphite and colored pencil.
Okay. So, but you've got a couple things going on. Clara, you're the sketching people queen. How do these rate for you?
I would say, Neil, when you're sketching somebody, it's really important to think about the surface that they're on. And the thing is, when I look at them, the big one, the pencil drawing, I'm starting to see like a little bit of the pillow and how the person interacts with that. But the other two, I don't really know what they're on. And so what I would do next time you're sketching a person, think about, okay, is this person like on top of a pillow? Are they sleeping on the ground? Like, I really want to understand that physical interaction because you're very good at gesture drawing. I'm not worried about you in that department, but you do need to think about the interaction of the figure with their environment. What do you think, Lauryn?
Yeah, I do think that, so that's why I really like the first one because I can feel that face pressed into that pillow or blanket or whatever it is. On the other ones, there is this sense of weightlessness that would be better situated if you included some other objects in there, have a grounding.
Blue Wolf Spirit is asking, are all three of these drawings your mom?
Yes, it's my mom sleeping.
It's nice that she would pose for you.
And Neil, who are these people in these sketches?
It's my grandmother sleeping again and sitting.
I love that. I think it's great that you're drawing your family members, that you're drawing from life. Lauryn, I love the pattern on the left-hand side. Neil, the way you really followed the form of the drapery, you laid the pattern on top. That is so hard to do. What do you think, Lauryn?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's a real elegant quality to that. And also, even on the one on the right with that sketched in checkerboard plaid, that feels, I think sometimes, myself included, with patterns, really want to tighten up and make it exactly right, but you leave this painterly quality that fits with the gestural technique of the drawing already.
Okay, what's your first take on this one, Lauryn? I think it's a self-portrait. Is it, Neil?
Yes, it is.
This is
very different than the last one.
Yeah, the first self-portrait was extremely, I'm going to say it was aggressive. You had all these angles and stuff, and this one is a lot more sensual. down to just the way that you're making the marks. It's all about the curve, and you've got all this cross hatching. So it's really about these volumes within the face and around the face. It feels very tactile. Like I could almost touch the neck or the cheek or the ear or the hair. Very tactile. Clara, what do you think?
I mean, one of my favorite parts of the piece actually is you going in and scratching into the piece. It's a little hard to see in the photo, but Neil, what did you use to scratch?
I don't really know, just some random sharp object, I guess.
Well, because I love the idea of it, but I think you need to do more, because it feels right now that there's some scraping in a couple of areas, but like, what if you had one area where you scraped it so much that you're almost going to the bottom of the surface? Because the idea is great, but I don't think it's been pushed enough. What do you think, Lauryn?
Yeah, I think that I would go with something that Charisma says, where it feels like the piece is moving. I would really lay into that more, just push everything more, because it feels like you started with a lot of this, with the scratching, with the cross hatching, with the directional mark making, but it feels almost like you were a little bit tentative. I wouldn't quite use the word scared, but you know, when you put stuff down, you always want to be more dramatic than you think is necessary, because it will end up just right. And I think that this piece is really a testament to that.
All right, so let's take a look at this one. This one, I think, Neil, has such brilliant color, and it's very different than your other pieces. I feel like those two self-portraits we looked at earlier, they were very much about form and showing the three-dimensionality of the face. This one is much more ethereal. It's almost ghost-like. I sort of feel like there's a spiritual quality to it. Lauryn, what do you think?
Yeah, I showed Eloise this one, and she loved it, because you have this expressiveness with all these heated colors that goes beyond just the contour of the face or the clothing or anything. It has this, it bleeds beyond that in a way that adds to the overall portraiture. Oops.
And Neil, what is the media?
It's graphite, acrylic, and colored pencil.
See,
Wait.
I would like you to do more mixed media, because right now we've seen you experimenting with a lot of different materials, but I think maybe that's what I'm responding to, is just all the different variation of marks, and there's so many layers to this piece.
I like what Blue Wolf Spirit says. If you put designs in the background contrasting against the scratches, you show the contour on the portrait. I think that's what this one is doing really well, is including that patterning in the background to contrast with that front bit. That adds that layering. Sorry.
And this is a great comment from Kiva, who says, I love the texture and patterns, totally dreamlike. Karen A says this is gorgeous. And I like this comment from Tammy saying the realistic eye really pops, because you know something, the rest of the piece is really not realistic. Most of it is pretty abstract. And so I like that stylistically you're making a change here. It's not all realistic. It's not all abstract. You're sort of getting the two to work together very well.
Now I keep seeing comments like this, Baby Neil. Is this Baby Neil that we're looking at? Aha.
So it's like, I did the graphite drawing from a baby picture last year when I first started drawing. It's like the stereotypical copied from photo drawing. And then I retrieved it last month and I did some stuff on top of it. So it's like, yeah.
I think it was good that you did stuff on top of it. I wouldn't call this a stereotypical copying from a photo, though, at all. In fact,
most of your work, I have no idea it's done from a photo.
That's good. That means that you know how to use photos.
All right, let's take a look at this one. This one to me is so different because it's really prioritizing an environment, and we have not really seen that as much. I mean, I guess there is the scary guy in the bathroom, but this one really is about the environment because there's no figure here. And I think it's got really bold, like luscious colors. Like I just want to eat that magenta. I don't even know what it is, but I feel like I want to take a bite into it or something. But what I would work on is having more atmospheric perspective, because I feel like the background, which is sort of like the middle top area, is still coming forward a little bit too much. So I would like you to maybe work on the contrast back there, have the contrast be a little bit lower. Lauryn, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like this one, while it's very luscious and I am just loving those ferns and flowers, it's drawing a bit too much from the imagination and not quite taking advantage of maybe this really good lighting that you have had in previous pieces that I think would really help make this feel more enticing to walk into or more believable as a fantasy scene.
Cerulean's asking, is this Photoshop, Neil?
It's gouache.
Oh,
It's gouache?
I would not have guessed that.
I did not think it was gouache because it looks so full. I mean, maybe it's just because I suck at gouache, but
Yeah,
every time I see people using gouache, it always has this very like thin look. I mean, unless you're like Alex Rowe. So like, I'm amazed that that is the case. So I think really, Neil, to me, what this one needs, it needs lighting, because usually in any outdoor environment, if it's dawn or if it's in the evening, there's always some version of lighting. And I look at it and I don't really know where the light is coming from. It's tricky because sometimes with your reference, you don't always have that. So Neil, tell us about this page. What's going on here?
So these are the thumbnail sketches and color studies for the previous gouache painting.
Oh, I thought you were storyboarding when I saw this. I couldn't quite make out all the little drawings in it. Cool.
I think what I noticed, Neil, are those little gouache studies in the bottom. Those are beautiful. I'm sort of guessing you watched Alex Rowe's gouache tutorial because that's the exact technique that he recommends. Was that helpful to do those little studies in color?
Yeah, it's very helpful.
This is, so Arish saying, I can't tell from where the light is coming. So seeing these pieces now, I can see that it would have been helpful to have some thumbnails in there that show a tonal version of this, because you have the color version.
I really like this comment from Blue Wolf Spirit. They are saying we are almost always wrong on the media. That says a lot about Neil's technique. Yeah, I mean, your command of art material, it's almost like you're creating an illusion of what's actually happening, because a lot of art media, they look a certain way. When you see a charcoal drawing, you expect it to look a certain way, and yet you're making pencil drawings that look like paintings. So I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
All right, Lauryn, what do you think about this piece?
Wow, this piece is crazy. Again, was looking at this beforehand with the rest of the crew, and we couldn't tell which parts were actually assembled on and which parts were painted on. So there's this trompe l'oeil effect going on in here that I was really interested in and would love some close-up shots on to really pull that apart. I do think, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think, Neil, when you have a piece like this, I'm guessing it's really textured. I mean, it seems like a very physically animated piece. Might be worth having like a really zoomed in view so people can see that a little bit better. It's tricky because when you're taking photographs of your artwork, you don't always think that until you talk to somebody who's never seen it before and they say, oh, well, I don't really understand what this actually looks like. So I might recommend doing something like that.
We got
Go ahead.
Oh, we got the question here. What is it made of, Neil?
It is like gouache, oil pastel, collage, and a bit of watercolor.
Yes. What material are you working on for this collaging bit?
It's magazines and painted paper.
Okay. Feels a lot more sturdy than painted paper. I thought there would be bits of cardboard or almost paper mache in it. It really has a structural backing to it, I felt like.
I guess it's because I layered a lot of paper. That's why it's kind of stiff.
I think
Neil, you know what I think would be super fun for you to try is maybe incorporating some wax into your mixed media pieces. There's a lot of different types of wax you can get. I mean, they have like this cold wax that you can actually mix in with oil paint. It's very soft, but I could imagine you just taking a paraffin candle. I mean, be safe about it. And then like dripping wax on top, because what's cool about wax is that it's translucent. So if you put wax over a surface like this, you could still see the color through it. And then you could play with the layers of wax and how thick or how thin it is. So keep going.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Moses. I feel like wax would be really great. You should look up encaustic. Encaustic is basically just wax, except fancy and structural, and it's like the paraffin stuff. But I do want to say on that previous piece, and it relates to this piece, I would explore, red-green is such a hard color combination to work with, and I would explore further the ranges of greens and the ranges of reds that you can get, both really dark to really light and really grayed out to really super saturated, because right now you're really relying on the super saturated ones.
There's some really great suggestions, Neil, people talking about media. Eleonora saying painting over the wax. That is super fun. And great suggestion from Lisa, who's saying you can also melt crayons. So just be safe, Neil. Promise we don't burn down the house in the process. So I have a question for you. Is this two separate artworks, or is it two versions of the same artwork? Because I was a little confused.
It's two versions of the same artwork. The right one is the one on the left, but the leaves are dried out, so it's brown.
Okay, what I would recommend for your portfolio, just pick one, because I wasn't totally sure, because they look similar. Like there are definitely things that make me think they're the same, but then I wasn't sure because it's not quite clear. So just think about that.
Michael is saying, I want to see these pieces large scale. I would love to see this as an installation piece, Neil. This is totally dynamic. It's way cool.
Neil, what was the surface of it? Because it's got like almost a rectangle, but it's a little bit ragged. What did you build on top of?
It's like cardboard. Yeah, cardboard.
Yeah, I mean, what I might think about is just getting more adventurous with the shapes, because like the last one that we were looking at, let me just pull that up real quick. This one over here, it's much more jagged. It's a little bit more primitive looking. This one, I think I sort of have trouble with because it's like almost a rectangle, but it's a little bit jagged. I just sort of want you to make a decision, like either make it really jagged or make it a really clear-cut rectangle. What do you think about the shape, Lauryn?
Yeah, I feel like this is the safer one of the two collages in terms of how far you went. I think the previous one feels like a coral reef. It feels living, like you just were adding things all over the place. And this one here, you have more of a system in the way that you wanted to add things, which isn't bad at all. I think that there's a lot of great ways of working with that. But if you're going to commit to that, really create a world or structure, a formula for yourself that you can really build out and double down on.
Now, I'm confused about this piece, Neil. Like, I don't know what we're looking at. Is this a 3D piece? Because I see a person on the left-hand side, but I don't quite know. Can you tell us what this project is?
So this is a set design piece for a fashion show that we had at school. So it is 3D and it's large. So that's why I add the person to reference the scale. And it's made from cardboard, boxes, and paper mache, and some wood for support.
Okay, so in that case, Neil, what I would recommend, you want to have several photos of the piece, not just from the front, but also from the side. I don't know what the back looks like, but if the back has something, you might want to show that. If it's just the back, it's not a big deal. And then the other thing, if you could, I know you probably can't anymore, but take a picture of it during the fashion show so we can see the people in the fashion show. And maybe the lighting's not perfect, but at least we can understand, like, what is the purpose of this set design? Because to me, it just looks like something in a gallery. Like, I had no idea it was set design. Lauryn, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. This is the only piece that I really have gripes on about your photographing, usually your photographs are really great. This one, it even though you have the person in there, which was good, the scale or the distance away that the person is really difficult to figure out. So I was thinking this was about half the size as I think it actually is. So yeah, I agree with Clara, either having someone from the fashion show in front of it doing their thing, as well as a piece, a photo of it on its own, or just a more clear wall with a little outlet underneath would be fine. I do like how this is very similar to some work by Red Grooms, who's an artist that uses a lot of giant collage set kind of stuff and cardboard and things. So I do really love the architectural painted kooky elements to it.
I mean, Neil, it's tricky to photograph a piece that's this big, that's part of another event. It's so hard, and a lot of people really just do not know what to do. Like, for example, you see the bricks on the left that are sort of like falling down. I'd love to see a detail of that so I can see the texture more clearly. My issue with the person on the left, it doesn't look like they're there for scale. It looks like an accident. It's like, oh, they happen to be standing there and I didn't crop it out. So usually if you have somebody in the photo, it's got to be really clear that they're there on purpose because you want to show the depth of the scale.
Ibekwe has this really nice piece of advice for you, Neil. I feel you are more of an experimental artist, so my advice is go all out with using any medium you lay your hands on. Your combination of bright colors is very skilled, so stick to using them. I think that's great advice.
I also like this question from Lisa. If the piece no longer exists, is the current photo good enough? What would you say, Lauryn?
I think if the piece is really that good, use whatever photos you have and try to fix them up in Photoshop. Sometimes you can cobble together something, but it's really too bad once you lose the piece. You can't. Sometimes you have to make a new piece that's just better.
This piece is no longer here. Our teacher didn't want us to store it in the school, so we end up destroying it because it has nowhere to go. So yeah, that's sad.
I mean, my feeling, Neil, based on what I'm seeing, you're a really productive artist, and I think that you're not going to have any trouble replacing this piece in your portfolio. I've seen other stuff that you've done that's not in this portfolio, like that soap carving you made. I feel like that would be a good piece to include because you don't really have anything that's like full out 3D in your portfolio. So I think this would be really good to do. Now, if you guys would like to submit to be considered to get a free art school portfolio critique or an artist portfolio critique, we do have the submission form. It's down in the video description below. And so we'd love to see what you guys want to do. You don't have to be on the stream like Neil is, but we do love it when you guys are. But I know it's sometimes stuff like that. So, but it's so nice to have the artist here on the stream with us and to really have that conversation. I mean, Neil, I hope it was helpful for you to be able to talk to us directly as opposed to just like listening. I mean, was this a really different experience for you, Neil?
Yes, it is. It's very helpful and very different. Yeah, I really like this experience.
So if you guys go to artprof.org, you want to click on tutorials, and then you will see if you scroll down, we do have an art school portfolios guide because I know a lot of you guys are applying and we got some cool comments. People are really thrilled about the work that you've done. Karen A saying, I'm overwhelmed by the variety and techniques you've shown so far. Love your colors, but 4 a.m. is definitely too early to react much. Well, you've definitely got your fans, that's for sure. And we have more art school portfolio critiques by many different members of our staff. So definitely check those out. And remember, Art Prof has a podcast. It's available on Spotify and also on iTunes. And we will be hanging out in the Discord. In a few minutes, we'll be in the post live streams channel with our superstar, Neil, talking about your work. The invite link is in the video description below. And subscribe to our channel and join the Art Prof family. And thank you so much to our top Patreon supporters. Thank you to everybody for the enormous amount of support that you guys have given Neil. I think that is so important. I mean, I wish I had that when I was in high school. So we appreciate so much you guys just rooting on Neil and really, because Neil, you're going somewhere. You definitely are. What do you think, Lauryn?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wish I had this level of support when I was in high school. Like, you really, no matter what you do, Neil, you have a lot of people that have got your back here. So thanks for coming on and doing this with us.
Thank you everybody so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.